I go back to the beginning of JPS, and you became a big part of my life when I was a kid.
No, exactly. Well, it's amazing how when you're starting to motor racing, and I got the drive with BMW, how it is your life.
Camaraderie like in the BMW team?
It was terrific. I mean, no one would backchat Frank too much, but everyone respected Frank. Everyone got along good. Never bad words for anyone. It was really, really good. The good thing about Frank was that he had a fantastic engineering experience, great at setting up cars. I did actually no testing of any of the cars in that era. I just come to the meeting, hop in it and drive it, and it was always better that time than it was the last time. He did a fantastic job.
Did that frustrate you though? Because as an engineer yourself, surely you'd want to have some part in the setup of the car.
No, all I wanted to do was go fast.
Attention, paddock area, we have Group C.
10 seconds away from the start of the Better Brakes Amscar Touring Car Series at Amaroo Park, the 20-lap final. And they get away to a good start, and Bond gets away now if he can change gears. Masterton with a blinder separates the two of them as they head up Bitchapay Hill for the first time. Robbie Francevic there in 21 also splitting them. Jim Richards dropping back. He's back in about fourth spot. And Garry Wilkinson in the XJS Jag comes up to second. No, make that third as Bond goes through on the inside. Got off the freight track. Francevic is the next one through, and Jimmy Richards, who's been away so smartly in all of the races, is back in about fourth spot.
Once again, Wilmington, who's made such a good start, has lost out because he was caught wide going into the loop and allowed 3 or 4 cars to get back underneath him again. All the ground that he made up going up the hill the first time has been lost.
Jim Richards has a power of driving to do now because he's back in fourth, tailing Steve Masterton, Colin Bond, Robbie Francevic as they head down to the Lake Corner. And here's Masterton in the Masterton Homes 2WS Commodore. Comes along the short straight to Camalco Corner. Bondi making a good start. Francevic is there. And what a good showing from Wilmington too as they go beneath our speed camera across the strike and head up Bitchapay Hill again.
Wilmington in 5th place ahead of Longhurst, who showed out to such advantage in the first 2 heats of the series here today, but not so this time in the 20-lapper. This is the long one. Masterton we saw lead up early in the second heat and then get run down by Jim Richards. Will that be the case this time? Remember, they've got 20 laps to go.
He's been coming out of the gate very quickly, Garry. Masterton bolting away, Colin Bond in hot pursuit. The tail of the Commodore really hanging out on that occasion.
He's pushing it hard. I think he knows he's got to push it pretty hard, though, to establish some... Oh, look at the battle here between Francevic and Jimmy Richards. Old adversaries through several rounds now of the Australian Touring Car Championship.
Well, Francevic going in tight behind Richards. Richards coming up to third place now. Bond just ahead of him on the track, and Masterton with a good head over the field, heads up Bitchapay Hill again. So the dice is now third, chasing second as Jim Richards, current leader in the Australian Touring Car Championship Series, heads into Dunlop Loop. There's Bond. Car number 26 really throwing the Network Alpha, the Ignis Fridges entry through the turn and now onto the backstraight.
This little car of Bondi's really has found something here at Amaroo this weekend. He's been campaigning midfield through most of the rounds of the Touring Car Championship so far without doing anything outstanding, but he's right up there mixing it with the front runners today.
Good, I can't wait for the Australian Touring Car Championship round here at Amaroo Park and see Alan Jones here in the second of the Alphas. Here's Richards coming down under brakes, thought about it. Now he goes to the outside. Hope he's going to try and get Bond on the exit off the turn, but Bond covers that nicely, gets off the wall.
Notice all the drivers skirting around the outside of the fuel and oil that's been spilt down there.
It's been a day for Rex. Okay, Richards now lining up for the matching of horsepower And there you can see the difference as they go over the top of the skyline and dropping down into Dunlop Loop. Richards from 4th to 3rd, past Francevic, now past Bond. He moves to 2nd, and Steve Masterton in the Masterton Homes 2WS Group A Commodore still leads as they come down to Mazda Corner.
Bond not giving up on Richards though, clinging to his tail through the back of the course, coming down towards Honda again. Masterton leads Richards and Bond.
The big hassle for Steve Masterton, as you can see with the tail hanging out once again, is there's 190 kilograms of lead in the back, where the back seat would be, of the Group A Commodore, and that's heating up the tyres more and more all the time. In fact, the total weight of the car is about 1,410 kilograms, which is about 200 more than it really needs to be in this type of car to conform with the regulations.
Richards is going to get Masterton in the next lap or two. Bond goes through, still holding down 3rd place ahead of Francevic, and then quite a gap from the 4th placed Francevic to Garry Wilkinson in the big red Jag.
They're running about a second off Jim Richards' qualifying pace, which was 55.2, and now Richards hard into the tail of Steve Masterton as they go through the loop, and again the Commodore really sliding. Richards' car looking smooth, sitting flat on the road, gets a little fresh air, has a look, fills up the mirrors of Masterton.
And while this is happening, Bond manages to get back on the freight train again, coming down to Honda Corner. Masterton really has his hands full with the Commodore at this stage. Richards will look for an inside run down here under brakes. Bond is there, very alert to try and pick up the pieces. And as they come out along the short straight to Wonderlick Corner, it's still Steve Masterton. Not a bad debut though, particularly when you consider how Jim Richards has been dominating the Touring Car Championship.
Oh, this is an outstanding first up showing for Masterton's Commodore. I think they're going to be tickled pink with the results that they've produced here today. Win, lose or draw in this 3rd and final heat of today's round.
You don't think Jim's putting some pressure on him too? Just getting him to skate out a bit wider. Says, let's leave the opening there. Oh, the tail of the car right across the front of the BMW.
Here comes Jim, Richards again.
Yeah, Jim will want to get out of here pretty quickly, I'd say. Wait for the pass as Richards puts the pressure on, and he goes through on the inside. So Jimmy Richards has gone through to take over the lead. Wait for Colin Bond to see if he can put the same pressure on as they come out of the bend. The Masterton has been able to lead. Watch for Bond on the inside coming up now.
Well, you can hear it, but you can't see it yet. The distinctive sound of the...
There
it is. 2.5 litre V6 Alpha, but Masterton comes back, puts power to the ground a little bit quicker, and almost snatches back 2nd place. In fact, he does.
Yeah, Bond was just a little slow to react coming out of the corner, got the car just a little bit sideways. And so look at Francevic moving up.
As Dick Johnson would say, the Swedish Valiant is on the move, heading up the hill, and Francevic, maybe they put the 4th gear in it for the 20 lapper this afternoon. He's found some, he's come across, now caught in. This is some great Group A racing.
The gearbox that's in the Volvo was found on a farm north of Newcastle by Graham Watson, apparently, and the ratios are totally wrong for Amaroo Park, but it's better than the one they had from Perth.
They come down towards the back part of the course again. Francevic, Masterton still wagging the tail of the Masterton Homes car, but still doing a great job. Bond there in 26, really keeping the pressure on. Now switches to the inside as they run down to the lake. Once again, we take race cam. Look for Bond on the inside, and don't be surprised if Francevic doesn't come into it as well. There goes Bond. Francevic is hollering around there somewhere on the inside as they come up to take the right-hander. And here's Robbie Francevic with Steve Masterton as they come out of Wonderlick Corner, come back across the strike. Richards the race leader, Bond in 2nd, Masterton is 3rd, and Francevic is 4th.
Quite a gap then back to the 5th place getter. That's still Garry Wilkinson in the XJS Jag ahead of Tony Longhurst in the BMW. Great dice, in fact, going on between that pair. You couldn't get a bigger contrast in the types of car. Wilmington's Jaguar and the BMW 323 of Tony Longhurst really battling it out in 5th spot, not far astern of the leading quartet at this stage.
German BMW, Italian Alfa, Australian Holden and Swedish Valiant come Volvo, as Dick would say, in 4th position. And that's exactly what Group A is all about. And look here, as Robbie Francevic closes once again under brakes onto the back of the Holden Commodore being driven by Steve Masterton. Said yesterday that he'd be really happy if he could pick up a 3rd or a 4th. They would consider that to be a good opening outing for the car. And they're doing marvellous things. Bond, Masterton, Francevic in the Mark Petch-owned Volvo 240. The turbo just finding its legs over the top of the hill, but not getting close enough.
Check the placings at this stage of the race. You'll find that Jim Richards is still the leader in the JPS BMW, followed by Colin Bond, the Alfa Romeo. Third spot being held by Steve Masterton as we take a break in this round of the Better Brakes Amscar Series. And this, as they say, is where the action is. There's Steve Masterton, and they swap places. He and the Volvo of Robbie Francevic. And there was nothing gentle about it either. There was a bit of push and shove involved in it. 11 laps gone in this race, 20 lapper. Jim Richards continues to lead. Let's have another look at this. Francevic has just got by. Masterton says, I don't like that, buddy. Make way.
Tinkle, tinkle. The glass out of the front of the Commodore, and Francevic heads for the hills. I don't blame him. So Robbie Francevic has made it up now to third place. Jim Richards is still our race leader. Colin Bond still running second on the road, and Robbie Francevic is third. Steve Masterton is fourth as we take race cam coming down to the left-hander at Honda.
Mechanically might be quite sound at its first outing, the Commodore, but by gee, he's got some handling to sort out, hasn't he?
Yes, well, as we said before, Gary, the car extremely heavy, just over 1,400 kilograms at the moment. And of course, after August, they'll be pulling some weight out of the car, about 75 kgs, which means it still will carry ballast. But there's a lot of experimentation at the moment with rubber on the Commodores, and I'm sure that Masterton and his professional crew will get it together. But engine and gearbox and brakes are all working fine on this car at the moment.
He's in fourth place on the track at the present time. Tony Longhurst in the BMW is in fifth place, and then comes Garry Wilmington in the big XJS Jag, and at the present time he's under a little pressure himself from car 22, and that's Glenn Malloy in yet another of the BMWs. And then Kenny Matthews, yeah.
So some new cars on the circuit for the first time, well, for this season, with Glenn Malloy in the BMW, the car that was campaigned last year by Jim Richards. The man trying to get past him is Sydney car dealer Kenny Matthews in the Commodore that was built for him by Terry Finnegan. So some interesting new equipment on the racetrack today, and good to see Garry Wilmington still out there and powering along in the XJS.
It's interesting, Mike, since I did that interview with him just a little earlier this afternoon about the lack of sponsorship, suddenly Monia roof tiles have come to the party, and they've put their insignia on the side of his car just to see what it's like to get their feet in the water of motor racing. They'll get a good run for their money, I think, with Garry Wilmington. He's a top campaigner.
It's good to see he's got something concrete.
Oh.
Garry Wilmington comes through the bottom corner and onto the straight, and he is either waving to his crew or waving, I can't believe, Ken Matthews through. Keeping in mind the car overheated at Sandown at its last Touring Car Championship start, and I'd say yes, that's not necessarily as it overheated, but he has a problem with the car. So bad luck there for the battler from Sydney.
Well, he's running on a borrowed gearbox. He's got one coming from England. Hopefully will be here this week and installed and ready to run in the next round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, which of course you'll see on the 7 network from Adelaide. And that's where he believes this car will be suited, by the long stretches of the Adelaide circuit.
Glenn Malloy doing a pretty good job here in the ex-Richards BMW. Has done a little bit of racing here in Amaroo when he ran the Triumph TR7. Had a couple of years layoff, but he's finding his footing pretty quickly out here at the moment. The car, of course, extremely well set up in the hands of Jim Richards last year in Group C trim, as Garry mentioned. BMW quite naturally fits into the Group A slot very nicely. This is a beautifully turned out motor car, the 2.3 litre 6-cylinder 323 BMW, being driven by Tony Longhurst from Queensland, the man who ran so well here at Amaroo, of course in the Alpha Sud, done some great things up in Queensland in the Gemini series there, had a run last year at the World Endurance Championship at Sandown with Jimmy Richards in the BMW. But this car, one of the prettiest little motor cars on the circuit at the moment, lovingly built up by Frank Gardner and all the JPS crew. Done a lot of work on this car and made it very competitive. Said before, they're hoping to install the 2.5 litre engine in this a little bit later in the season. I think that it's fair to say that Tony is going to be capable of giving people like Colin Bond a fair run for their money in the Touring Car Championship and Endurance Championship. So I guess it's been built to help break up things in that class a little.
At the moment, Tony Longhurst running 5th on the racetrack, but closing just a little bit on Steve Masterton in the number 2 Masterton Holmes car.
Pretty busy boy, Tony Longhurst. Among other things, he's the owner of a fairy floss stand at Dreamworld in Queensland, builds the odd house here and there, and has a pool cleaning contract operations. So, pretty strange combination to go motor racing with.
Sticky business. We're for car number 23. And he is doing exceptionally well, Tony Longhurst. Another fellow who's going well at the front of the pack is Jimmy Richards in car number 62, who I think would have started, without doubt, odds-on favourite to win here today, despite the fact that it was the debut of the Commodore by Steve Masterton. But there he goes, 62, Frank Gardner, expressionless.
With Garry Walden in the background.
So they're having a great season, keeping in mind that they've been following a lot of other teams around for a few years, and they're now starting to enjoy a little of the success that they've deserved. Colin Bond, not that far back behind Jim Richards in car number 26 as Richards comes across the line again with the laps running out. Bond in second, checking the gap back to Bond.
3 laps remaining in the race, and a good leader, Jim Richards from Colin Bond, and what a great job Bondi's done in the little Alpha.
0.2 of a second the gap between Richards and Colin Bond.
And that gap's starting to close now, Mike.
Well, whether or not Jim has cooled it, here's a problem for Garry Wilkinson. They're changing rubber.
It's a bit hard to try and come into the pits and do some work when they've got cars lined up in there for the next race, isn't it?
You're not wrong.
Looks like it may have been flat.
Yeah, some power tools would also assist. But then again, when you're on a tight budget, you probably can't afford those luxuries.
Colin Bond coming down towards the lake corner and about 40 metres astern of the race leader, Jim Richards. Just not close enough to apply pressure, but I must admit he does have a 50-metre lead over the third place getter, and that's Robbie Francevic in the hard-charging Volvo.
I think we can expect to see better things from the Volvo in the next round of the Touring Car Championship with those long straights at Adelaide.
And a fully competitive gearbox would help as well.
Yes, I think he's been the find on. Oh, hold on. He thought he was back doing the Bega Rally or something. Yeah.
Thought he was at the rally sprint a few weeks ago.
No, I think he might have run out of tyres.
Well, he'll still be able to hold that about that same gap, 0.3 of a second back behind Jim Richards. Don't know if Richards would be doing anything else but just taking it easy.
Some experience between these two drivers. Colin Bond, twice Australian Rally Champion, winner of the James Hardy 1000 back in '69 in a Holden Monaro. Australian Touring Car Champion, of course, and Jim Richards, winner at Bathurst with Brock, and looking down the gun barrel this year of his first major Australian Championship. And funny enough, both of these fellows have won their major races, their major titles in General Motors products.
Whatever the problem was with Wilmington's Jag, they're back on the track and running, but it's all going to be a little too late because the last lap board is out. It's been taken by Jim Richards and by Colin Bond. Francevic holding down third spot, then Masterton as the final lap unwinds for Jimmy Richards. 3 heats in this first round of the Better Brakes Amscar Series at Amaroo Park for 1985, and it's 3 wins coming up for Jim Richards and the clear series leader after round 1. Well deserved, and the form man of touring car racing in Australia so far in 1985, not just here at Amaroo. I say what, Bond's closing up.
Yes, he's
in the last stages here. I don't know whether it's just a desperation move on his part or whether Jim Richards is content to cruise to the line.
And coming up to take the checkered flag, Jimmy Richards goes on to win the Better Brakes Group A Series at Amaroo Park. Second place will go to Colin Bond. The likeable Kiwi Robbie Francevic will get third place out of it. And salvaging fourth will be Steve Masterton in the Masterton Holmes Group A Commodore. So let's recap the official placings for you. As recorded, 62, Jimmy Richards first. Second place going to 26, Colin Bond in the Alfa Romeo. And third place, 21, Robbie Francevic of New Zealand in the Turbo Volvo. And they're racing too and getting off the line like a bullet is Colin Bond, and Jones follows him too. They're trying to head Jim Richards as they head up the hill, and Steve Masterton pulls another gear on the 2WS Commodore, and Zappo, he goes through as they head up to the hill for the first time.
And Francevic is missing.
Robbie Francevic not making the grid. So Masterton now leads. Second spot held by Colin Bond, who will look for a little nip and tuck there. Then the two BMWs, and one with problems is Alan Jones already as he sits in behind Lowe as they come down the back straightaway. But Masterton will lead. Boy, isn't he quick off the line.
Disappointment for Alan Jones. Really wanted to leave a big impression here today in his farewell appearance at Amaroo Park, but the car just doesn't seem to be running the way he'd want.
Well, he's already got past Longhurst, so that leads Masterton leading. Bond in second. Third is Richards, followed by Crichton. Then Peter Williamson, Garry Wilmington, and Alan Jones. They slide out of the bottom turn, and Richards with the tail almost on the wall that time. The distance of this one, 10 laps. They're across the strike. 1 completed, 9 to run. Up the hill, and Masterton giving the V8 Commodore its head. And he leads from Colin Bond in 26. And Richards now honing in on the tail of the Ignis Alpha.
I suppose it's unfair to say Jim Richards was a bit slow off the mark. Masterton just dragged them all off the grid to get to the lead. Richards has been known to come from behind before. In fact, he does it pretty often. Usually manages to get himself shuffled back to third or fourth spot off the grid in most of his races. But when the whips are cracking, you'll find Jimmy's going to be up near the front again. In fact, he's not that far from it right now.
Through Honda Corner on the run down now to the late corner. Steve Masterton and the Masterton Homes 2WS V8 Commodore leads. Richards closing in on Bond, and Bond is right here on the inside of the race leader.
News has just come through, Mike, that Masterton has a 1-minute penalty for jumping the start.
Goodness me, so really it's Bond pursued by Richards then in the race.
Well, it doesn't rain, it pours. But Steve Masterton still leads them up the hill. I don't think Jim Richards might be aware of that at this stage. He is just concentrating more on disposing of Colin Bond in the Network Alpha number 26 car. But despite the problem of the minute penalty, it certainly looked quick off the line, Bond's car, and certainly Alan Jones, but Mr. Ever-Present in touring car racing, Jim Richards, has managed to pick up that deficit, and he's sitting right in there behind Colin Bond as they come down to Honda Corner again.
Bond is using a brand new set of Avon experimental tyres this weekend, which feature carbon fibre construction, that wonderful material that's popping up in all forms of sport at the moment, and it seems to be making great inroads as far as the performance of the Alpha is concerned.
We'll have a look at the gaps back when we get a chance to see how Jones is faring when we get a clearer picture. There is Masterton sideways. There go the two BMWs, and I think you'll find that Jones is on the inside of Williamson and putting the pressure on him fairly and squarely.
Tell you who else is in there too. It's Neil Lowe in Kent Bagent's BMW, the number 3 car. He's started to make a charge from the rear of the field.
Yes, Bagent's in New Zealand this weekend, and Neil Lowe, who's been working on the car in the Australian Touring Car Championship, has got a run this weekend. The first run since the Wellington Street race.
Look at this. Colin Bond on the inside takes Masterton. Richards, we'll see if he can squeeze. He tried to. There just wasn't enough room. And we take race cam now from Steve Masterton's car. They come out of Honda Corner, and just look at that nimble little Alpha with the Ignis sign on the back of it. Just skip away.
Bondy must think it's Christmas. Here he is up front.
Look out for Jim Richards on the inside of Masterton.
Oops! He says, gotcha. And Masterton says, yeah, well, two can play at that. We'll see who's got the third gotcha here. Oh, it's still Richards. They come out of the bottom corner and back across the strike again. Jones with problems with the 27 car. We'll deal with that later. It's slowing down and looks like it's out of the event.
Yes, he's just going down through the lake corner and doing it very slowly, Mike. I think we've seen the last of Alan Jones for this race.
Well, the scrap still continues, and Jim Richards with the number 26 Alpha in front of him, Colin Bond at the wheel. Keeping in mind the drivers using the Better Break Series here today at Amaroo Park. There's a full wind-up for the round of the Australian Touring Car Championship that will occur here in July. And Peter Brock and a few of the other V8 Commodore drivers who don't show any sort of affection for Amaroo Park might pay the penalty for not doing a meeting here before the touring car title. Because if one guy has got this place dialed in, it's Jim Richards. And this fella, Colin Bond, 26.
Bond leads, Richards second. Masterton third, but he got a 1-minute penalty against him. Then Neville Crichton in the second of the JPS BMW cars. And then Neil Lowe, he had another BMW car 3, and Garry Wilmington, the big Jag, starting to pick up a bit of ground now as the race unwinds.
Enrico Zanarini from Alpha would be delighted to see Bondi leading the BMW across the top of the hill. As we mentioned before, Jones' last outing in the touring car, in the number 27 car, that goes to Colin Bond, who will take up the machine for the remaining rounds of the touring car title.
I'm sure that they'll get the Jones car up and running again, and we'll see him in action in events later on the program here this afternoon.
To the left-hander they come at Honda, heat 2 of Bond. Locked a break up and he could pay very, very dearly for that. Because Gentleman Jim says, gotcha, and takes him on the outside. So Jim Richards in the 62 car takes the lead away from Colin Bond. That's all it needed, was one brake lock-up, and Richards was through for the lead.
Incidentally, Colin Bond will go into the 27 car that Alan Jones has been campaigning through the year, and the car that Colin is currently in has been sold to rally expert Greg Carr, who will use it in the Australian Rally Championships.
It's good to see Bond will get the 27 car for the remaining rounds. He's doing a pretty good job, and he has done a tremendous job for Alpha throughout the Touring Car Championship Series. And don't underwrite this man being a potential winner here for the round of the Touring Car title.
Want to get another look at this stills cameraman down here, and they come through this corner. I can't believe the guy standing where he is. Look at him.
Well, he's on the top of the earth bank there, but...
Yes, I know, but if they come straight ahead, he'd have to move pretty quickly.
These legs would not have had his rowdy houses. To the bottom turn, Jimmy Richards at 62 will lead along the short straight to Wonderlick Corner. He actually hasn't drafted Bond off by too much. Masterton still holding there for third as they head up Bitchapave Hill again.
Notice again, Mike, the back of the Commodore looking very taily like it did last weekend at Surfers Paradise. And that seems to be the problem with the car at the moment. It's getting away brilliantly, but as soon as it heats the tyres up, backwards it goes.
Mind you, the BMWs are holding a very strong hand in this race. Jimmy Richards leading at the moment in the JPS car. Neil Lowe in Kent Bajan's BMW is up in 4th place, and Tony Longhurst in the BMW 323 also not far off the place getters.
Jimmy Richards from Honda Corner coming down to pass one of the Capris. Could have been Phil Parsons. And Bond manages to nobble Parsons as well. Along the short straight now to Wonderlick Corner.
Richards, Bond, Masterton, then Crichton, Neil Lowe, Garry Wilmington in the Jag, and then Tony Longhurst and Peter Williamson. That's the order.
2 laps remain in the second heat, the 10-lapper at the Better Break Series here today, round 2 at Amaroo Park. Bondy crouched over the wheel, throwing the car around.
Just starting to lose touch with Richards a bit.
Richards, meantime, increasing that gap to Mazda Corner. A run downhill now to the next of the left-handers, which of course is Honda Corner.
What a season it's been for Jim Richards. 3 wins from 3 starts at the first round here in the Better Break Series. And of course his domination of the Australian Touring Car Championship is well known to all of you out there, I'm quite sure. Great to see Jim up there, because for years and years in Australian motorsport he's been knocking on the door, and now the opportunities have come his way. 1 lap remaining for Richards, car 62. Colin Bond closes the gap just ever so slightly as they head up the hill for the last time.
Not only have the opportunities come his way, but he knew just when to pick up and run with it too. And he's got the equipment to do it this year.
Look at Bondy throwing the little 2.5 litre V6 alloy engined Alpha across the top of the hill, throwing out absolutely everything that he can at this flying fuel-injected 6-cylinder BMW.
To Mazda Corner again, and the run down to the left-hander at Honda. Jimmy Richards, 62, the black BMW, leads out of the turn. Bond probably closer now than he's been for the last lap or so. Jim just cooling it a little bit. Bond closes up though, that's all the incentive he wants. Along the short straight to Wonderlick Corner. And as they approach the final turn, 62, leader in the touring car title, looking good for the Better Breaks. Jimmy Richards leads Colin Bond across the line. And actually third across the line is going to be Steve Masterton in number 2, but we'll allow the officials to work out who was third. Off and racing, Colin Bond, another blinder off the start. This time Jones goes with him and splits them and comes up the inside of Colin Bond. Masterton makes another flyer, and so too does Neville Crichton, but Jones may have blown it. He's slowed down going to the top of the hill as they drop over into the loop, with Masterton now leading.
Got a definite nudge from Jimmy Richards, did Alan Jones.
He's gone wide again, right in front of Williamson, so he has problems, Alan Jones. And tailing Steve Masterton is Colin Bond yet again, and coming down the inside of him, looking very businesslike indeed.
Yes, you can see the Nerf on the front of the BMW car number 62, so Jim definitely gave Alan Jones a nudge. As Steve Masterton leads them through Honda Corner for the first time. Colin Bond in second. In third place, Neville Crichton. Behind him, Jim Richards, Garry Wilmington, Tony Longhurst and Alan Jones fighting back for supremacy.
Here's Steve Masterton to the late corner, in control. Bond sits behind him. Neville Crichton is third. Fourth place. Little
Neil.
BMW problem there against the concrete wall, but that's Lowe, I think.
Yeah, Neil Lowe, and also mixed in there is Glenn Malloy, and I think poor old Willow was tangled up there somewhere along the line.
Yes, got caught between the two.
Well, the car is gone, but meantime, Steve Masterton leads over the top. Second spot being held down by the yellow Alpha, driven by Colin Bond. Then Neville Crichton, Croaky Crichton in 31, and Jim Richards in 62.
I'll tell you what, Garry Wilmington is close enough, if good enough too, in the big Jaguar this afternoon.
Back behind him, I think, is Tony Longhurst and then Alan Jones.
Neville Crichton paved the way for Jim Richards to go through in the car number 62 then, so Jim gets a crack at the leaders. There's Wilmington, Longhurst and Jones. Let's have a look at a replay here as Ken Matthews goes through. As they came out of the right-hander at Lake Corner.
Bang.
And in goes Neil Lowe. I would suggest somebody was up his tailpipe at the time, because Willow's in the middle of the bunch there in car 77 as we come back live, and looking at Tony Longhurst with Alan Jones, the 1980 World Formula One champion in hot pursuit. Longhurst had a couple of rotations this morning in the first heat and hasn't come to terms with things today quite so well compared to the first round here at Amaroo a month or so back.
Masterton leads into Dunlop Loop. Bond again, rock solid citizen in second. Crichton back there in third, and Jim Richards in fourth. He's got the distance on his side, 20 laps this one. And Bond is going to really push Masterton hard over the distance. To Honda Corner again. And as they come out of that bend, I'd say the tyres might be starting to get a little warmish on the Commodore. But he's sitting there, handling the bends nicely, not too sideways. Comes out of there nicely with Colin Bond sitting right in, and Bond would be well aware that he's got two BMWs behind him.
The car that's doing a great job is the little 2.3 litre six-cylinder BMW back in fourth place as Colin Bond has a look here on the outside. It's not giving too much away to the 3.5 litre bigger black cars in front of it, but Masterton the leader. Bond on the inside. Jim Richards looking for the way around the outside, and Neville Crichton playing rear guard.
Well, that's where Masterton gets the car a little bit sideways coming out of Dunlop Loop. Crichton, as you can see, wants to get on with this one. I really don't think that Steve is bound for the lead for too many more laps.
Glenn Malloy out of business in the Woolworths entry.
Bad day for BMWs.
Who's that?
Well, no, that's a Marshall, but and it looks like a tyre or something has come off the car and gone down into the behind the back of the stand there.
Oh, and Colin Bond getting plenty here from Neville Crichton at the moment. Richards goes through to second, so the new leader at the moment, or should I say new second place holder at the moment, is
Jim Richards.
Jim Richards, yeah, what a performance. Well, confusion there. I didn't quite know who went where because the three of them went down to the right-hander together. So Richards, then followed by Bond, now with Neville Crichton in hot pursuit. And Garry Wilmington, as you said before, Garry, is getting very close.
Yeah, and Alan Jones is clawing his way back. He's not all that far away either after getting touched up by Jim on the hill the first time.
Yes, he's got by Tony Longhurst now. It's hard to know where to look just at present.
Bondi going through in third, Crichton back to fourth, Wilmington is fifth, and then Jones and Longhurst. Jones 27 coming up on the Jag, towards the lake corner again. Binders come on the Jag.
David and Goliath, this is.
Not right, not wrong. Still number 12, Garry Wilmington. Through Wonderlick Corner, he's got straight line speed, the Jag up the hill, but watch Jones start to haul him in when they drop down into Dunlop Loop. The pole sitter, and of course as they come down towards the lake, it's Richards slipping by on the inside of Masterton, obviously with tyre problems, and will go through to take over the lead. So coming out of that corner, the lead changed, but here once again Alan Jones with Tony Longhurst joining into the spirit of things behind Alan Jones, coming up to Wonderlick Corner again. Whether or not he can haul in Wilmington's Jaguar over the distance? We'll have to wait and see. But it's been a fascinating scrap because Longhurst shows every sign of wanting to go on with it as well.
In this round of the Better Breaks Amscar Series at Amaroo Park, and Jim Richards just there on the right of screen goes through to lead the race now from in second place Colin Bond. Steve Masterton has dropped back to third, then Neville Crichton, followed by Tony Longhurst, then Garry Wilmington and Alan Jones. This is the view from race cam in Steve Masterton's car. In third place, that's Colin Bond up ahead of him, and disappearing over the top of the hill, Jim Richards.
To Dunlop Loop again. The car that threw the wheel off earlier, parked the harm's way there as Jim Richards comes down towards Mazda Corner. Unbeaten run again for the BMW team driver. So I mentioned earlier a few of the drivers who have decided to give Amaroo a miss before the Australian Touring Car Championship round will find a very, very competitive Jim Richards. If they think they're going to beat him off the start, that's one thing, but they've got to beat him over the distance, which I believe will be 50 laps for the touring car round here.
6 wins from 6 starts is what Jim Richards is looking at the moment in car number 62. That's a clean skin, that's for sure. Great performance from the BMW driver, and just exactly the same that we've seen from him in the Australian Touring Car Championship. Here's Richards over the top of the hill now with a half reasonable gap, and lap 10 with 10 to go, so exactly half race distance. Past the Glenn Malloy BMW, which was involved in that rather unusual looking incident through the right-hander. There's Bond, the gap back to the next drivers. This is the great battle between Wilmington and Jones. Tony Longhurst has broken free of this one now. But as Garry said before, this is a real David and Goliath number because we've got the V12 Jag with a 2.5 litre V6 Alfa Romeo. And Jones really hasn't been able to come to terms with either the car or the circuit all weekend. Longhurst, meanwhile, getting close to the back of Crichton as we look at Garry Wilmington.
Wilmington still sitting there.
It's a very wide car for Jones to have to find a way around. Although Longhurst managed to do it. Oh, look at that, will you? Flap, flap, flap. He'll take off in a minute.
Up Betchapave Hill, and the Jag pulls away from the Alpha GTV. But when they drop into the loop, this is where Jones closes it from here down to Honda Corner. And unfortunately, the Jag gets wider from this point on to the bottom part of the course. Not really the circuit you would think that Garry Wilmington would want to come out and play with the BMWs and the Alphas. Tightest, or one of the tightest tracks in Australia.
Well, the car is very big and heavy, and I would imagine a quite difficult motor car to drive. And Jones still putting lots of pressure on. Oh, look, the sparks from the back of the big Jag as Jones looks for a run through on the inside. Will he get him? It's going to be very tight. Wilmington closes the gate. And now the big horsepower of the Jag runs away from the Alpha up the straight to the top of Betchapave. Look at that gap. Nose to tail as they came out of the right-hander before, and now Jones has to do all of the hard work once again. Left-hand drive car to somewhat of a disadvantage here as well. This is the battle between Crichton and Longhurst. Longhurst having fought his way out of the battle between Wilmington and Jones, now dives for an inside run on Crichton. I think he pulled it off. Masterton doing battle there with car number 65, John Craft in the Capri. So Masterton in third position. And Longhurst is in fourth position now.
So Longhurst, there he is, in the BMW Motorsport entry.
Crichton to fifth. Jones has now got Garry Wilmington for sixth. So Wilmington back to seventh, then followed by Peter Williamson in eighth.
Neville Crichton carries on in 31 behind Tony Longhurst.
Little 323 is really running well this weekend. Neville Crichton having his first competitive run here at Amaroo Park in the second of the JPS cars. He didn't show up, you'll recall, at the first round after bending the subframe of the car at Amaroo. Although they do a lot of testing here at Amaroo Park on a regular basis.
To Honda Corner again. There's Neville Crichton in car number 31. Hasn't been able to pull back that gap on Tony Longhurst. So Longhurst has done one heck of a job.
6 laps to go here.
He's actually closing the gap on Masterton at the moment, and with 6 to go, he must be a fair shake to at least get close to the back of Masterton, if not get by.
Richards leading to the top of the hill. There's Neville Crichton going through in car number 31. So the order unchanged. Richards doing it easily out in front in car number 62. Colin Bond in second spot in car number 26.
Well, Crichton really seems to be off the pace through the right-hander here at the moment. And one would have to say that there's something wrong with a car which lies second in the Australian Touring Car Championship after 7 rounds.
Well, he goes into Honda corner again and makes his way down to the bottom turn. There's the Jag going through, car number 12, Garry Wilmington. So the order still Richards leading up the hill and opening that gap all the time on Colin Bond in number 26, running third. Masterton is still third, and Longhurst closing on Masterton as they go up to the top of Bitcher Pave.
Wilmington goes over the start-finish line with 5 laps remaining. But I'm afraid he's lost out in the battle with Longhurst and Alan Jones. And Longhurst, in fact, is really doing it well. There he is in 23 and closing very quickly now. Steve Masterton.
Be a big day for Frank Gardner, Neil, if he can get the BMW Motorsport entry 23 up, clear of the Commodore.
Yeah, great performance from Longhurst.
I'll tell you what, I think he might do it too.
Particularly after the problems he had in Heat 1, where he went over the top of the hill and spun the car 3 or 4 times, and he was sitting in the back of the truck looking pretty despondent about it all. They put the car up on the hoist, had a look underneath, cleaned all the rubbish off it, and he's come back and he's really firing in this one.
So point to prove for Tony Longhurst. Richards doing it well up front from Colin Bond, then Masterton about to come under threat from this man.
Longhurst was the winner of the Alpha Series here a couple of years back, or a year back, in 84. He knows his way around this course very well. And what a shame it's been so far that we haven't seen this car in the Australian Touring Car Championship, but I do believe that we'll see it on the Sydney rounds at Amaroo Park and Oran Park at the close of the series, rounds 8 and 9.
It could be a race spoiler too for quite a few of the teams. Now Steve Masterton still back there running in third, but the man making all the ground on him is Tony Longhurst in the 23 BMW Motorsport entry, and just watch the way he'll close here under brakes. There's Masterton. How close is Longhurst? And laps running out.
Gone through on their 17th.
56.5 on 17 to Steve Masterton. Gets away from the BMW up to the top of the hill. But from this point on, this is where the car gets very skatey indeed.
Yeah, handling's gone right off on the Commodore, hasn't it?
A bit of opposite lock on there. And here comes Longhurst down the inside.
He's going to do it.
And did it nicely. So Tony Longhurst up into third place. The BMW 635 with Jim Richards at the wheel leads from Colin Bond in 26. And now Tony Longhurst running in third in car number 23.
Be interesting to see how much ground Longhurst can pull on Colin Bond in second place. I don't think he'll have time to really get on his tail or get past him, not with only 3 laps remaining in the race. In fact, 2 laps remaining now as they cross the start-finish line.
As he goes by Chris Heyer, he still is closing the gap, however, Gary. The car is phenomenal under brakes. I noticed as they went to the tight right-hander. Look at Masterton here, though, with horsepower to advantage.
This will be good. We take race cam as he comes down under brakes behind Tony Longhurst. That would not be impressing Steve Masterton to have already taken the lead away and then have something so small and so agile nibbling away at him and then take him.
Longhurst will lose him here anyway, I reckon.
Through this part he will. Masterton's only hope obviously is up the hill again. There's the race leader, gentleman Jim Richards, in car number 62, heading down to the right-hander at the lake. Big day for Jim, big month for Jim, big year for Jim.
Big Jim.
Last lap forward is being shown to Jim Richards. All he's got to do is keep it all together to take the checkered flag here. that'll be 3 wins out of 3 starts here today. That'll be unbeaten in the Better Breaks series here at Amaroo so far. And of course the man who leads the way in the Australian Touring Car Championship so far. Really has had a phenomenal run here in this series, Jim Richards. Second round of the series, 3 heats at each round. This will make win number 6.
Coming down to the lake corner for the final time through the gears in the 62 car. The BMW 635 along the short straight to Wonderlick corner. And Jim Richards, the master of the Australian Touring Car Championship, the master of the Better Break Series, and the master of Amaroo Park. Chalk up another one to Gentleman Jim.